So what really drives monumental success? Is it just, healthy competition, that sort of drive to be a bit better than the next person?
Or is it something, well, deeper? Something maybe rooted in strategic conflict even, especially when you look at the absolute top performers.
That's exactly the question we're tackling today. We've been doing a deep dive into insights from the book Enemies, the Psychological Engine of Success.
Yeah, and it presents this really provocative idea, doesn't it? It reframes high achievement completely, not about teamwork necessarily, but about intentionally managed antagonism.
Right. So our mission today is to unpack that core argument. The idea that you actually need strategic adversaries. The source calls them enemies, not as obstacles, but as like essential drivers.
And we want to understand what that mindset tells us about the psychology of these elite performers.
We're looking beyond just, standard competition here. It's about success through calculated, purposeful friction.
Yeah, it's not just talent or hard work we're talking about. It's these specific, sometimes kind of counterintuitive psychological drivers needed for that extreme level of performance.
Okay, so let's get into this key distinction then. The argument isn't just about responding to pressure. It's that people actively need these enemies.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to separate general competition from this idea of strategic enmity. What's the real difference there?
Well, think of general competition as broad, diffused, like running a race against a whole field.
Okay.
An enemy in this context is really specific. It's a targeted psychological driver. It focuses all your energy, prevents you getting sidetracked.
Right.
It becomes this internal engine, but it's powered by a very defined external opposition.
Okay, but I have to push back a bit here.
Yeah.
Does the source distinguish this strategic enemy from just, like, toxic obsession or revenge?
That's a really important question.
How do you stop this engine of conflict just driving you off a cliff, basically?
And that's where the source emphasizes the strategic part. The brilliance lies in the choice.
Ah, the choice.
Exactly. Toxic obsession just consumes you, right? But strategic enmity, that focuses you. The book really stresses choosing your enemies wisely.
Wisely?
Yes, because the value you get from that opposition, well, the source equates it to the value derived from love.
Wow. Okay, that's a strong comparison.
Yeah.
Love and enmity as fundamental drivers.
Including all the emotional risks involved in both.
Yeah. So they're like two sides of the same coin,
Yeah.
both defining parts of a high-stakes life.
That seems to be the idea. If you pick a weak enemy, your motivation just fizzles out.
Right.
But choose a powerful, worthy adversary strategically. That fuel can sustain focus for, well, decades. General ambition or just low-stakes competition often can't maintain that.
It gives the drive purpose,
Yeah,
definition, a definition that maybe only conflict can really provide.
exactly. That kind of clarity.
Okay, so if strategic enmity is the fuel, let's look at the engine itself. Let's examine the common psychological traits in these elite performers, finance, sports, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The source suggests there's a very specific recipe, almost paradoxical.
Yeah, it's not your standard grit and determination checklist. The source points to 3 specific and honestly quite surprising ingredients that work together for sustained success.
Okay, ingredient 1 is maybe what we'd expect. Foundational security, unconditional love.
Right. That secure base allows for taking big risks, which you need for high achievement.
But then the second ingredient, this is where it gets really counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Pain from a loved one.
Yes. That's the really dynamic, critical piece, according to the source. And it's not necessarily physical pain.
Right.
It's more a deep, foundational, emotional wound. Maybe impossible expectations or a feeling of abandonment or just profound disappointment caused by that loved one.
So the idea is that huge achievement isn't just born from nurture. It often needs this powerful, maybe unresolved emotional friction too.
That's what the source strongly suggests. You have the love providing security, and then this deep wound, maybe from that same circle, providing this lifelong drive, this need to prove something.
How does that translate into competitive drive then, that combination?
Well, it seems to create this almost inexhaustible energy source. That pain, combined with the third ingredient we mentioned,
Which is intentionally choosing enemies.
exactly, that combination becomes this dynamic, self-perpetuating force. You've got the secure base from love, the internal energy from the pain, and then the external target, the enemy.
Okay.
And this framework might explain why so many elite performers seem driven by something they can never quite resolve, you know?
Yeah, that recipe. It certainly makes some of the figures the source uses as examples make a bit more sense.
Absolutely. Take someone like Elon Musk, who's often highlighted as operating with these kinds of drivers.
Right.
He doesn't just react to critics, does he? He often seems to almost cultivate external conflict with regulators, rivals, the press.
It feels like a necessary part of his environment.
Exactly. He strategically identifies these external friction points. It keeps his focus incredibly sharp, his drive constant. Conflict isn't a bug, it's a feature. It's the required psychological pressure cooker for him.
So when we think about our own careers or personal goals, we usually try to smooth things out, right? Find the easiest path. But what if this deep dive is suggesting that for you, the listener, to get to that next level, you might need to actively seek out some productive friction?
Yeah.
Not just a generic competitor, but a really defined opposing force.
It definitely challenges our usual definition of a healthy drive, doesn't it?
It does. And when someone operates at that intensity, generating that much conflict alongside the achievement, well, the effects probably don't stay just personal.
No, that kind of high-stakes strategy inevitably ripples outwards. It has societal echoes.
Okay, let's broaden out then. Looking impartially, of course, at the adjacent cultural issues, the source connects to this kind of psychological intensity. The source notes, for instance, a definite decline in trust of traditional media. How might that connect?
Well, you have to ask, right? If elite figures intentionally cultivate conflict, does that inherently chip away at institutions like the media that rely on public trust?
Because if a high-profile person labels a news outlet or a regulator as their strategic enemy.
Yeah, that behavior has a big ripple effect. It can normalize antagonism towards established systems. It sort of validates that approach for others.
Transforms debate into something more like trench warfare.
Yeah, could be. And the source also brings up the impact of bad government policies, specifically on UK families in this case.
Okay, how does that fit in?
Well, it highlights a potential disconnect, doesn't it? You have these elite figures achieving huge global goals, often fueled by conflict,
Right.
while at the same time, many people are grappling with very concrete local problems, economic stress from policy decisions, things like that.
So it shows the intense focus needed for elite performance might operate against this backdrop of real societal issues that maybe those figures are, by necessity, somewhat detached from.
It's a complex picture. The source just points out these coexisting realities.
And finally, there's the personal cost mentioned. The challenge of fame and fortune, finding authentic relationships.
Yeah, that's maybe the ultimate paradox here. The very engine creating that astronomical success built on emotional pain and strategic conflict. Well, if your default mode is identifying and confronting enemies to stay focused, how good are you at actually letting your guard down, forming genuine trusting bonds, especially with people not operating at that same extreme level?
So the same psychological tools that drive success could actually undermine personal connection, leading to isolation.
It's a potential consequence, yes, a profound one.
Okay, so wrapping this up, we've done this deep dive, looked at these sources suggesting elite achievement isn't just effort. It's about mastering this specific psychological skill, the strategic use of antagonism.
I think the key takeaway is that synthesis, really. High-level success might mean moving beyond just reacting to rivals. It's about mastering the skill of identifying and, crucially, leveraging strategic conflict.
They aren't just enduring opposition.
No, they're choosing their enemies because they understand, maybe instinctively, maybe consciously, that that opposition provides this necessary, powerful, defining drive.
It forces us to stop seeing conflict purely as an accident or an obstacle.
And maybe start seeing it as a deliberate tool, a powerful one for sustained excellence, potentially.
Right.
So the final thought for you, the listener: if great achievement really is driven by these intentionally chosen adversaries' forces that create intense focus and motivation, what might you gain and, importantly, what might you risk by defining the major obstacles in your path, not just as benign competitors, but as a true enemy?
It forces you to define what you're fighting against.
Which, in turn, often clarifies what you're truly fighting for. It's a challenging thought.